What's up, guys? I want to talk about the best skills and attribute by weight division of all time for every single weight division. And then at the end, I want to look at who has the best of these skills and attributes of all time, if that makes sense. I've done this video in the past with the current UFC fighters. I wanted to do a new and updated one with all-time fighters. I thought it'd be a great and fun idea. So leave a like on the video if you enjoy this style of content. I would greatly appreciate it, guys. And let's get right into the video. Starting off with Flyweight. Who is the best kickboxer at Flyweight of all time? In my opinion, that's going to be Demetrious Johnson. Demetrious Johnson, there's no secret, he's the greatest UFC flyweight of all time. One of the most skilled fighters we've ever seen. And just, man, between the knees and the clinch work, well, not clinch is not part of kickboxing, but just the kicks and the punches and the kicks and the punches. But yeah, it's no secret, DJ, I don't think he's ever been outstruck in his entire MMA career. Maybe against Adriano Moraes and won, but for the most part, throughout his entire career, he's pretty much outstruck and out-kickboxed every opponent. So I'm going to have DJ for the kickboxing. Going on to the who's the best boxing of all time in the flyweight division. Give me Brandon the Assassin Baby Moreno. Listen, Brandon Moreno, if you get inside the pocket with this guy and you want to box, he's going to piece you up, piece you apart, like he just did to Amir Albazi. He put on an absolute boxing clinic against Amir Albazi. And even against Pantoja, Pantoja was getting boxed up by Moreno. Moreno was boxing up Davis and Figueiredo in most of their fights. This guy has insane hands, good boxing, and yeah, shout out to the Mexicanos. Moreno for the boxing. For the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, has the best BJJ. I'm going to put DJ. I mean, this guy's won BJJ tournaments while doing MMA against world-class guys, winning medals in BJJ tournaments, and just always had an amazing ground game. He's submitting black belts, submitting Wilson Hayes in the UFC, doing flying arm bars and emoting on Ray Borg. I know you could argue Pantoja has better BJJ, but no, I don't think so. I think Demetrious Johnson has the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the flyweight division we've ever seen. So yeah, I got Demetrious Johnson for BJJ. Let's get on to the wrestling. I think Pantoja takes it for the best wrestling. Has there been a UFC opponent that Pantoja could not take down? I mean, for the most part, I think he's taken down all of his UFC opponents. He took down Asakura, he took down Brandon Moreno, Kai Kara France, Brandon Royval. Like, he's taken down almost all these guys. I think he even took down Figueiredo. I don't remember, but Pantoja in the wrestling, in the lower weight classes, or at flyweight at least, he has some of the best wrestling and just positional control once he gets on top. So yeah, got my boy Alessandro Pantoja for the wrestling. Put some respect on his name. Who has the best power in UFC flyweight history? For me, it's going to be Davis and Figueiredo. I mean, just what he did to Joseph Benavidez in their first fight, dropping him, and in the second fight, dropping him multiple times. The only guy to knock down Chito Vera in the UFC. The only guy to knock down Pantoja in the UFC, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, man, if you get hit by this guy, you have a good chance you're going to go down. He just has dynamite in his hands for such a small guy, and it translates from flyweight to bantamweight. So this guy has real one-punch knockout power, but yeah, and he's dropping guys that have never been dropped. So in my opinion, Figueiredo has the best power we've ever seen at flyweight. Let's get on to the cardio. Who has the best cardio? I think that's going to be Demetrious Johnson as well. Demetrious Johnson's cardio. When have you've seen this guy go through so many 5-round fights? When have you ever seen Demetrious Johnson gas out? Never. He's always pushing the pace, always pushing the pressure on his opponents. And that's part of the reason why he was so good. If you look at this list of he has the best kickboxing, in my opinion, BJJ, and cardio, and I might as well drop it now, the best fight IQ. It's like if you add all this for Demetrious Johnson, like, no wonder this guy was the best flyweight of all time. I mean, the skills are unmatched, and just to have all that is quite overpowered. So yes, I have Demetrious Johnson having the best kickboxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, cardio, and fight IQ of all time at flyweight. Come at me. I am glazing a bit, but it's true. You know it's true. And for chin, it's going to be Pantoja. This guy has the best chin in UFC flyweight history, in my opinion. I mean, I know I think Figueiredo's the only person to drop him. Outside of that, the dude can just lunge forward like a zombie, and just take shots, take punishment. He's willing to take one to give one. And I mean, this guy had a flush flying knee for Kai Asakura. If you watch that fight, I'm pretty sure it was flush. And he's taking some big bombs off of some big hitters down there, including Figueiredo. Like, Figueiredo dropped him, but he couldn't put him out. So yeah, Pantoja definitely has the best chin in flyweight history. And yeah, this is my rankings for the flyweight division. Let's get on to the bantamweight division. For bantamweight, who is the best kickboxer of all time in bantamweight? In my opinion, it is going to be Sugar Sean O'Malley. Sugar Sean O'Malley. Listen, when it comes to mixing up the kicks and the punches and just distance management, Sean O'Malley is the best of the best. I mean, this guy easily has the best kicks at bantamweight, and you could say Umar, but I think that Sean O'Malley has a little bit better kicks than Umar. Just I rewatched some of their fights, and I think Sean O'Malley's kicks are a little bit better, and his just accuracy and kicks and punches and everything together. This guy, and his speed is insane. So yeah, O'Malley for kickboxing for sure. Who has the best boxing? It's not even a question. It's going to be Petr Yan. I mean, if you guys don't know, Petr Yan actually had an extensive boxing background before he just joined the UFC. He did a lot of boxing before he did MMA in general. So a huge and a ton of boxing experience. Not the most power, but when it comes to technique and just putting together like amazing combinations, this guy's a treat to watch. Anytime you watch Petr Yan, it's like eye candy in terms of the skill level he brings. So yeah, Petr Yan is the best boxer in bantamweight history, in my opinion. Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I'm going to give to Aljo. Now, I know recently I said that Aljo has overrated submissions, and I still think that, but BJJ is not all about submissions. It's about positional control. It's about getting to the back. It's about getting in a position where the other guy can't get out. Aljo, when it comes to getting to the back and securing body control, he's arguably the best in bantamweight history. And he also does have some submissions in his resume, just not recently. But yeah, BJJ, I do think it goes to Aljo. I don't see a single fighter at bantamweight that has had more success positionally in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu department than Aljamain Sterling. Who has the best wrestling? You know what? I'm going to say it, guys. I said Merab had sloppy wrestling, but you know what? We're talking about effectiveness, and we're talking about in the UFC. And listen, when it comes to MMA wrestling, this guy's the best of the best. It doesn't matter if he's spamming inaccurate takedowns. At the end of the day, he gets you to the ground and he mauls you, and that's good wrestling in my opinion. Look what he did to Henry Cejudo. Look what he just did to Umar in the later rounds. Look what he did to Petr Yan. This guy has the most takedowns in UFC history at 92. He's the best wrestler in bantamweight history. I'm not going to deny it anymore. I'm not going to cope. Merab is the best wrestler. I'm not talking about going off a technique. No, I'm talking about success and just being good at it. He is good at getting his opponent to the ground, so therefore he has the best wrestling. Power. I think O'Malley has the best power at bantamweight. I'm not going to count Figueiredo because he was a flyweight most of his career. So yeah, O'Malley. And part of that is because he's so accurate, but who has more one-punch knockouts than O'Malley? I mean, this guy knocked out Julian Paiva. This guy knocked out Eddie Wineland one punch. No, people were beating Eddie Wineland, but nobody was one punch KOing him, you know? O'Malley knocked out Aljamain Sterling, his chin was unbroken for a long time since he lost to Marlon Moraes. So yeah, O'Malley has that fight-changing power, unless you're Cheeto, where if you hit him the right way, then, or if you get hit by him the right way, you're going down. But yeah, cardio. I think O'Malley even dropped Petr Yan in the fight, but who has an insane chin? Cardio. Merab has the best cardio in UFC history, in my opinion. It's not even close. I mean, this guy is shooting upwards of 50 to 60 takedowns in some of his fights. Now, I think the highest he shot was 49 takedowns against Petr Yan. He shot and he secured 13. And against Umar, he shot 30. So Merab is a cardio machine. His nickname is literally the machine. Couldn't be a more fitting nickname for Merab. Yeah, the best cardio at bantamweight and in UFC history. Let's get on to the best chin. It's no secret it's going to be Marlon Chito Vera. That knee that he took from O'Malley, I don't know if you guys remember, it sounded like a baseball bat. Any other fighter in that division probably goes to sleep. Marlon Chito Vera ate that like a tic-tac and kept moving forward. I don't know what this guy's made of, but he doesn't seem to take facial damage at all, and he doesn't seem to have any problem getting hit in the chin over and over. He's been cracked by some of the biggest punchers at bantamweight, and I think he's been temporarily sat down by Figueiredo, but outside of that, this guy doesn't get cut. He doesn't really get dropped, so yeah. Marlon Chito Vera with the best chin. Fight IQ, I'm going to have Dominic Cruz. Listen, Dominic Cruz, this one's for the old heads. When it came to in his prime, Dominic Cruz was so good at footwork and just mixing up the wrestling, and he always knew when was the appropriate time to shoot a takedown, just to keep you off balance. He would piece you up in the striking, and then at the perfect time, he would shoot a takedown. And I think what plagued Dominic Cruz for maybe going further in his career was all the injuries he had. I mean, this guy had like 2 or 3 ACL surgeries, blew out his shoulder. And yeah, man, it took a lot off of his career. But in his prime, whenever he was at his best, Dominic Cruz had some of the greatest fight IQ. So yeah, that's no wonder a lot of people consider him the bantamweight GOAT. Let's get on to the featherweight division. In the featherweight division, the best kickboxing that we've ever seen, in my opinion, is Volkanovski. Alexander Volkanovski puts on absolute clinics against guys in the featherweight division in the kickboxing across his career. I mean, look what he did to Yair Rodriguez, who's one of the best kickers in the whole game. In terms of MMA, look what he did to Max Holloway in the kickboxing. Look what he did to Brian Ortega. I mean, this guy was whooping up everybody in the kickboxing. Jose Aldo, everybody in the kickboxing throughout his featherweight run, and even Islam, he was giving him trouble in the kickboxing. So yeah, Volkanovski, definitely the best kickboxer at featherweight. The best boxer is clearly Ilia Topuria. It's not even close. And what's crazy about Ilia is he actually came up as a grappler. And with that, he's formed the best boxing in UFC history, you could argue. But definitely at featherweight, he has the best boxing we've ever seen. The combinations he's putting together on top of the accuracy with the power to go with it. This guy's sleeping people like Max Holloway that's never been slept. He's knocking out Volkanovski. He's butchering Josh Emmett. So, yeah, got Ilia Topuria. For Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I'm going to give it to Brian Ortega. You could say Ilia, but we haven't seen enough. He did submit Bryce Mitchell, but outside of that, we haven't seen enough of his BJJ. Brian Ortega is known as probably the most dangerous submission artist in the featherweight division. That's why nobody likes to go to the ground with him. The way this guy snatched up a guillotine on Cub Swanson, or he submitted Yair Rodriguez recently, it's no secret you don't want to go to the ground with Brian Ortega. Even Volkanovski got caught in 2 very close submissions by Ortega, and if it wasn't for Volkanovski's like weirdly shaped neck, he probably would have got submitted in that fight. But yeah, Ortega, the most dangerous BJJ artist at featherweight and the best. For wrestling, I think it's going to be Chad Mendes. This one's for the old heads. People forget, man, Chad Mendes was one of the first guys to take down and control Conor McGregor on the ground at featherweight. And Conor McGregor was a massive featherweight. He cut a ton of weight. So for Chad Mendes to come in on 2 weeks' notice and take him down and control him was very impressive, even though he couldn't get the submission. And he also is one of the only guys in the UFC to take down Jose Aldo in his prime. I mean, Merab couldn't take down a 35-year-old Jose Aldo who he went 0 for 16 on takedowns. Chad Mendes, I believe, got a couple takedowns on Aldo, which is very impressive. So yeah, I think Chad Money Mendes takes the cake for the best wrestler in featherweight history. For power, I'm going to have big meaty hooks. Josh Emmett, in my opinion, has the best power we've ever seen at featherweight. I mean, this guy knocked out Bryce Mitchell so bad, which is now deserved now that we know what we know. He was seizing up on the canvas, and he put Michael Johnson to sleep out cold. And just if the only thing that Josh Emmett lacks is the techniques, because he just throws big overhands. But if this guy had technique, he'd be like, imagine Josh Emmett with Ilia Topuria's level of boxing, dude. He'd be sending everybody to the shadow realm. But yeah, Josh Emmett, insane power. There's a wonder this guy, nobody wanted to fight him for a long time, because who wants to fight big meaty hooks? And yeah, cardio, I think it's going to be Max Holloway. You could argue Volk, but Max Holloway's been in the UFC since, 2012, and I've never seen this guy gas out. I mean, this is the same guy that set a strike record on Calvin Kattar. I think he threw like 700 strikes in that fight, which is absolutely gnarly, and landed like 400 or 500. Max Holloway, say what you want about him skills-wise in terms of like getting a lot of losses, but you've never seen this guy gas out, whether it's at lightweight or featherweight. This guy's always pushing the action. One of the greatest cardio fighters and just like forward pressure fighters we've ever seen. So yeah, Max Holloway for cardio. For chin, I debated Ilia Topuria, but I'm going to give it to Brian Ortega just because he has more fights in the UFC and his chin has been proven over a longer period of time. Yes, he got dropped by Diego Lopez recently and arguably knocked out and then woken back up, but the amount of punishment this guy took from Max Holloway and the amount of punishment this guy took from Volkanovski and who else did he take a bunch of punishment from? I don't remember, but Brian Ortega has taken a ton of punishment in his career. He's barely been dropped, and his chin is always held up. And this guy's recovery, like if you've seen him after his fights, his recovery after getting cut up and butchered up like a week later, he looks normal. It's insane. But yeah, Brian Ortega, all-time featherweight, I think has the best chin and the fight IQ. I'm going to give it to Volkanovski. If you want to see a great display of fight IQ, look at Volkanovski fighting Yair Rodriguez. That combination he landed whenever he was piecing up Yair Rodriguez, then he went into a takedown and they just ground and pounded him out. That was insane. Against Max Holloway, the level of fight IQ you have to be down 2 rounds to Max Holloway in their second fight and then come back in clutch rounds 3, 4, and 5 to secure the decision is absolutely insane. And then he made an adjustment to go really boxing heavy on Max in their third fight and pieced him up for 5 rounds, put an absolute clinic on Korean Zombie. And yeah, just overall a great fight IQ by Alexander Volkanovski, which is why he's the most dominant and best featherweight champion of all time, in my opinion. Let's get on to the lightweight division. Lightweight. For lightweight, who is the best kickboxer at lightweight history? I think it's Islam Makhachev. That might be a hot take, but if you look at the history of the lightweight division, some people would say Conor McGregor. I don't think so. I think Islam has better kicks and just better range management than Conor McGregor did. Conor McGregor was good. Yeah, you could argue that actually, I'd say Conor McGregor had better distance management, but I think Islam, specifically at lightweight, has better kicks. You didn't really see too much out of the kicks at lightweight with Conor. You saw more a boxing approach after and before that Floyd Mayweather fight. I think actually, is Eddie Alvarez his only lightweight fight? Oh no, the Dustin fight's true. But yeah, I have Islam as the best kickboxer in lightweight history. Might be a hot take, but I'm giving him his flowers. He's outstriking guys like Volkanovski to some degree. He's outstriking guys like Poirier. Speaking of, the best boxing in lightweight history, in my opinion, is going to go to Dustin Poirier, Louisiana Swamp Trash, Dustin Sawyer. Yeah, Dustin Poirier, in my opinion, has the best boxing that we've ever seen in UFC history. No, not in UFC history, in the lightweight division. I mean, his shift combinations and just the way he's able to box you up and adjust his shorts and fix his hair while doing it is quite impressive. So I got my boy DP with the best boxing. He's outboxed the best of them at lightweight. In the BJJ department, I'm going to give it to Charles Oliveira. There's a reason this guy has the most submissions in UFC history. Yes, he was submitted by Islam, but I still think pure BJJ Charles is a better BJJ artist overall. Yeah, he got, like I said, he got choked out by Islam, but that was after he got dropped. And yeah, Charles even almost caught Arman Sarukian in a couple of submissions, just showing how dangerous he is in the submission department. I think he has 16 submissions, which is the most in UFC history. Let's get on to the wrestling, which I think is going to be Khabib Nurmagomedov. I mean, yeah, his takedowns weren't the most accurate, but kind of the same case as Merab. He got you where he wanted you in the wrestling, and he just locked you in there, and you couldn't do anything about it. Locked the Dagestani handcuff and just started mauling you on the ground. This guy's takedowns against the fence are probably the best in UFC history, so gotta have Khabib for the best wrestling. Going for power, I'm going to give it to Conor McGregor. That might be a hot take, but I wanted to give a little love to Prime Conor in this video, and yeah, man, who does that to Eddie Alvarez, man? Knocks him out in this prime, dude. Conor McGregor knocked out a prime Eddie Alvarez. What else did he do at lightweight? I forget. I guess he didn't do much at lightweight, but I'm still going to give it to Conor because, I don't know. I don't really have a good reason. You guys tell me a reason why I should put Conor McGregor at the best power for lightweight. Maybe you can give it to Poirier or someone else, but I'm going to give it to Conor McGregor or maybe Gaethje. I don't know. Let's get on to the cardio. I think Tony El Kukui Ferguson has the best cardio in UFC history. I mean, this guy, if you want to see the best display of cardio, look at his fight versus Rafael dos Anjos. And even in the latter half of his career, his losing streak, you never really saw Tony like gassed out. This guy was always in amazing shape. I mean, this guy was working with David Goggins at age 40. So you know he was practicing that insane cardio, but it wasn't enough. Shout out to my boy Tony. In his prime, he was one of the biggest cardio moggers in UFC history, just absolutely breaking guys under his pressure, and he would end up getting a submission or he would just wilt him to a dominant decision. So, yep, for chin, I'm going to have Nate Diaz. Yeah, I'm going to put him at lightweight because he fought most of his career at lightweight until the end. He changed to welterweight, but Nate Diaz for a long time fought at lightweight. And outside of Josh Thompson, man, Nate Diaz had an absolutely unbreakable chin. I mean, this guy got hit with a flush head kick by Jorge Masvidal, took it. This guy hit by a flush head kick by Josh Thompson, went down, but still didn't go out. And just Nate Diaz has fought some of the biggest punchers, and he's never went out cold ever in his entire career. He has a great chin. Yeah, he's been dropped, but in terms of like just not going out cold and be able to take punishment, Nate Diaz is up there with the best of them. So, yeah. For fight IQ, I'm going to have Khabib. And the reason to have Khabib over a guy like Islam is because Islam, I feel like, has made some questionable decisions in his career. Like, I feel like he should have been more wrestling heavy against Poirier instead of choosing to box with him. And he ended up getting a giant cut on his forehead. Khabib never cut. He would get you against the fence, get you into his world, take you down where he's the strongest, and finish you. So he was a very smart and, like, great fighter at getting the fight where he wanted it, you know? So in that terms, I think he was the best in terms of fight IQ in the lightweight division. Let's get on to the welterweight division. Shout out to the welterweights. Who's the best kickboxer in welterweight history? It's going to be Wonderboy Thompson. Now, a lot of you might say Michael Venom Page, and maybe, but Wonderboy in his prime, I think, has proven way more than Michael Venom Page has. Michael Venom Page has fought a lot of cans in his career before he came to the UFC. So I think Wonderboy is more proven. I mean, this guy outstruck a prime Vicente Luque. He destroyed Kevin Holland on the feet, was outstriking Tyron Woodley in moments on the feet. Who else did he put clinics on? He put clinics on a lot of guys in the striking, and it just made him look silly. Darren Till, he hung in him with there. He made Jorge Masvidal look silly on the feet. So Stephen Thompson literally made a career off of outstriking guys. I mean, even against Shavkat before getting taken down, he was kind of doing good work. So, yeah, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, definitely the best kickboxer in welterweight history. Boxing, it was between GSP and Usman. I'm going to give it to Usman. GSP had a better jab, but I feel like overall Usman had like the more dangerous, more powerful boxing and maybe even more success outside of the jab. But yeah, Usman knocked out guys like Jorge Masvidal in the boxing. He dropped Colby Covington a bunch of times with the boxing. So yeah, Usman has a really good boxing. He was talking about that Canelo fight for a while, although Canelo would have pieced up that little Malteser head. But yeah, Usman for boxing. For Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I'm going to give it to Gilbert Burns. Yes, I've gone on record to say that Gilbert Burns has overrated submissions, and he does. He's not the best submission artist. He does have submissions in the UFC, but where Gilbert Burns shines is I think he's the best defensive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist we've ever seen in UFC history. Who submits this guy? I mean, even Hamzat took him to the ground and then was like, nah, I don't want to play grappling with this guy, and got back up on the feet. So the fact that he made Hamzat keep it on the feet, saying how good his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu defensively is, threatening arm bars and such. And yeah, man, even guys like Sean Brady couldn't really like do much to Gilbert Burns in terms of like submission. So yeah, I think he has the best BJJ in the welterweight division's history. Wrestling, I'm going to give it to Georges St. Pierre. And what's impressive about Georges St. Pierre is a Canadian fighter. He trained all of his wrestling in MMA. Like he never like was a collegiate wrestler or Olympic wrestler. Georges St. Pierre learned all of his wrestling in MMA, which is super impressive. He has the second most takedowns in MMA history now, UFC history now, at 90. Marab just passed him up, but man, Georges St. Pierre's boxing along mixed with his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu, second to none, man. This guy was absolutely insane. No wonder most people have him as one of the top 1 or 2 GOATs of the sport. Let's get on the power. I'm going to give it to Tyron Woodley. People forget, man, Tyron Woodley knocked out Robbie Lawler out cold at UFC 201 to take the belt from him. He also has a out cold knockout over Josh Koscheck, Jay Huron, one of the first guys to drop Wonderboy in the UFC. He dropped Darren Till. Tyron Woodley in his prime had some of the most scary power. If he hit you with that overhand right, you were probably going to sleep if he hit clean. So yeah, Tyron Woodley for power. For cardio, I'm going to give it to Colby. Greetings, nerds and virgins. I just got back with a bunch of mamacitas practicing that bedroom cardio. Yeah, Colby Covington definitely has the best cardio in the welterweights division's history, in my opinion. I mean, this guy in his prime was cardio mogging guys like Robbie Lawler, guys like RDA, even Tyron Woodley later in his career, Damian Maia. Colby Covington just always put a pace on guys and just a relentless pressure to guys mixed in with the striking. He was relentless, and yeah, it was a treat to watch in his prime. Chin, I'm going to put Nick Diaz. Shout out to the Diaz brothers for having some of the greatest chins you've ever seen. As Nick Diaz, I know he didn't have a lot of UFC fights because of the whole weed thing, but has Nick Diaz ever been dropped in the UFC outside of the Lawler fight when he was way past his prime? I don't think so. Nick Diaz, throughout his whole career, Strikeforce, UFC, has always had an amazing chin. Those Diaz brothers are just built different. So yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to the old heads and the Diaz brothers and give Nick Diaz the best chin that I've ever seen at welterweight. For the fight IQ, I mean, it's going to be Georges St. Pierre. This guy was kind of in Khabib's way, was always smart to bring the fight where it was going to be the best for him, whether that be in the wrestling or in the stand-up. Whenever he knew that Nick Diaz was a great striker, he just took him down and dominated him for 5 rounds. And, you know, GSP always brought the fight into his world, wherever he felt most comfortable in, and that's why he has the best fight IQ in welterweight history, in my opinion. Let's get on to the middleweight division. For middleweight kickboxers, I'm going to have Israel Adesanya. I'm not going to include Pereira for middleweight. I'm going to include him at light heavyweight because that's where he's been recently. That's where he's done most of his work. So Izzy for kickboxing at middleweight. Listen, I know he just lost last night and he's 1-4 in his last 5, but in his prime, it was very hard if you're not Sean Strickland with forward pressure to outstrike Izzy. He outstruck guys like Marvin Vettori, Robert Whitaker 2 times, arguably in the kickboxing. He outstruck Alex Pereira in their first fight. He was in moments. In the second fight, he knocked him out. Israel Adesanya, and he also has an extensive kickboxing career, is the best kickboxer we've ever seen at middleweight. And there's a reason this guy went 20-0 before losing to Jan Blachowicz. Boxing is going to be Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland! Listen, Sean Strickland in his prime, which is right now, has some of the best forward pressure boxing and defense. It is so hard to hit this guy clean. It really makes you put into thought how good Alex Pereira is to be able to crack this guy on the chin and put him out, because nobody else has been able to do it. People have been able to hit Sean Strickland decently, but even Drick has said he's one of the hardest guys to hit. Even Izzy saying he's one of the hardest guys to hit. Just his defense and his Philly shell, forward pressure, definitely one of the best boxers offensively and defensively. He is the best boxer at middleweight we've ever seen. BJJ, it's going to Khamzat Chimaev. I'm just going to say wrestling too. Wrestling and BJJ, it's Khamzat. Listen, when it comes to the wrestling and BJJ, there's nobody in middleweight history that's done it like Khamzat. And yes, I'm going to include his welterweight career, even though he's a middleweight. What he did to Usman in the first round in the wrestling, nobody else could replicate. Usman had 100% takedown defense. Yeah, you could say Colby took him down and Leon took him down. Not 100%, but he had in the high 90s. And Hamzat was taking him down at ease in that first round. And yeah, he faded in cardio in the later rounds and struggled to get the takedowns. But BJJ, look what he just did to Robert Whittaker, who's known as the best anti-grappler in the middleweight division. He took him down with ease and squeezed his face until he broke his teeth. Yes, people say that it was a fluke because Whittaker's teeth were weak, but at the end of the day, man, you go into the fight knowing your injuries, and what happened, happened. I don't think that Robert Whittaker was going to get out of that squeeze even if his teeth weren't messed up. So yeah, Hamzat Chimaev has the most dangerous BJJ and dominant wrestling we've ever seen at middleweight. I don't think that's really debatable. If you think so, let me know in the comments who you would put over him. For power, I'm going to give it to Dan Henderson, the big H-bomb. I mean, if you guys wanted to see one of the most brutal knockouts you've ever seen, go watch Dan Henderson versus Michael Bisping, UFC 100. That right hand hit Michael with Bisping with that follow-up shot. That was so brutal. I mean, and even this guy was knocking Mauricio Shogun, who all over the place. He knocked out Hector Lombard when he was like 45 years old. And Dan Henderson knocked out Fedor Emelianenko when he was in his prime. So yeah, Dan Henderson across his entire career has always had insane power. That right hand H-bomb was always insane. So yeah, I'm going to give it to Dan Henderson for power. For cardio, it's going to be Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Yeah, I know you can say he hasn't proven much, but he's been in the UFC for a while. He's in the rankings. And if you watch this guy's fight, he's like a dark horse at middleweight. This guy's cardio is absolutely nutty. Like, he's like a middleweight Marab. Not quite as intense, but he gasses everybody out. Look what he did to Michel Pereira. Just gassed him out and beat the brakes off of him for 5 rounds until securing the 5th round TKO. And I think he's going to do the same thing to Brendan Allen. This guy just cardio mugs everybody. Probably the most underrated cardio in the UFC because he's not a very popular fighter. But yeah, I got Fluffy for cardio. For chin, it's going to be Marvin Vettori. This guy's taken a ton of punishment in his career, and I mean a ton of punishment. And I don't think he's ever been dropped. This guy got destroyed by Jared Cannonier, destroyed by Robert Whittaker, destroyed by Israel Adesanya, and just beat up by a lot of guys, and he's just never been dropped. This guy's chin is made of absolute titanium metal. I don't know, but it needs to be studied because if I ever was a UFC fighter, I would want Marvin Vettori's chin. And for fight IQ, I couldn't really come up with a definitive one. I guess I'm going to go with Whittaker. Whittaker has had some of the best fight IQ we've ever seen in terms of the UFC middleweight division. Maybe you could put a guy like Hamzat above him, but I don't know. Maybe you could put Strickland above him. Who knows? Or maybe you could argue DDP, because DDP seems to find a way to win, but DDP's had some low IQ moments. I feel like Robert Whittaker's fight IQ has really been on display throughout his career. His chin has failed him at moments, but maybe whenever he blitzed forward against Izzy, that was a low IQ moment. But I don't know, man. I was struggling to find fight IQ for middleweight. Maybe you could do DDP over Whittaker. I don't know, but yeah, I had Whittaker. Let's get on to the light heavyweight division, where the kickboxing, it's no secret. It's Poatan. It's not even close. Alex Pereira is knocking out everybody. If you stand with this guy, it's a death sentence. He's knocked out Israel Adesanya. He's knocked out Yuriy Prochazka twice. He's knocked out Jamal Hill, Khalil Roundtree. And I think he's going to continue that and knock out Magomed Ankalaev if Ankalaev decides to stand with him at UFC 313. Alex Pereira, he's so dangerous on the feet. He got lethal head kicks. He's got lethal kickboxing. He's got power in his hands. One-shot knockout power. So, yeah, I definitely have Alex Pereira for kickboxing. For boxing, it's going to be underrated. Boxing, I'm going to go with Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier's dirty boxing on the inside was some of the best we've ever seen at light heavyweight. I mean, even in the John Jones second fight, he was outboxing John Jones in the dirty boxing range despite losing the fight to a roided up Jones who ended up landing a head kick. But yeah, man, DC's boxing in the dirty boxing range and just in general was very good in the light heavyweight division. So I'm going to put some respect on his name. For Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I'm going to give it to John Jones. John Jones has submitted guys like Vitor Belfort, like Quentin Rampage Jackson back in the day, like Lyoto Machida. He's out. I wouldn't say he did much in the BJJ department in term to Daniel Cormier, but he destroyed Anthony Smith on the ground and just beat him up, made him go into the fetal position. So yeah, John Jones with the best BJJ, also the best wrestling. I'm going to give it to John Jones as well. John Jones's wrestling is arguably the greatest you've ever seen in the upper weight classes. This guy's takedowns. I mean, he took down Daniel Cormier like 4 or 5 times in their first fight, and Daniel Cormier is an Olympian, so that's very impressive for John Jones to do. And even up at heavyweight, he's taking down guys bigger than him like Cyril Gane, taking down guys like Stipe. So yeah, John Jones, the best wrestler in light heavyweight history, in my opinion. Power, rest in peace to my boy Rumble Johnson. 100% has the best power we've ever seen at light heavyweight. I mean, this guy was one. He knocked Daniel Cormier across the octagon. Luckily, Daniel Cormier has a good chin. Otherwise, he got sent flying across the octagon. He one punch KO'd Glover Teixeira in 13 seconds. Ryan Bader was terrified of Rumble's power. Rumble got on his back and destroyed him. Rumble Johnson knocked out Alexander Gustafsson in round 1. So yeah, Rumble, some of the most insane power we've ever seen. And rest in peace to my boy. Shout out to Rumble. Cardio, I'm going to have John Jones. Listen, I know I crap on John Jones a lot. And you know what? And we're just going to show chin and fight IQ. John Jones has 5 of the 8 attributes of light heavyweights in light heavyweight history. There's no wonder this guy is the consensus GOAT in most people's eyes of the sport. I don't think it's a bad argument. The best BJJ, the best wrestling, cardio, chin, and fight IQ of the light heavyweight division. I mean, who has knocked down John Jones? This guy has a really good chin. I know it's hard to hit him clean, but he has been hit clean by Dominic Reyes, by Rashad Evans, which are guys that have put out other guys clean. He has been hit by Glover Teixeira and Daniel Cormier. John Jones has withstand a lot of power punches, and he obviously has the best fight IQ, and his cardio is unmatched. Even though he lost the Dominic Reyes fight, in my opinion, he did, in the championship rounds, despite being down on the cards, push the pace and show that his cardio and his just will is very strong. So, yeah, John Jones for all 5 of those, which is absolutely insane. Let's get on to the heavyweight division. The best kickboxer in heavyweight history, Alistair Overeem. Listen, I know Alistair Overeem was chinny, but I'm pretty sure this guy was like a kickboxing champion in, what was it, Dream? If it was that kickboxing, I'm not 100% sure, but kicks, punches. Look what this guy did to Brock Lesnar in his prime. And just in general, knocked out Mark Hunt later on in his career. First guy to finish Sergey Pavlovich. In terms of mixing up the punches and the kicks, and Alistair Overeem was some of the best. I think he has the highest significant strike accuracy in heavyweight history. So there's that. So yeah, Alistair Overeem for kickboxing for sure. In the boxing, I'm going to give it to Tom Aspinall. Yeah, some people are going to argue for Junior Dos Santos, but I think Aspinall has more dangerous boxing. He has more accurate boxing, and just like I said, he's finishing guys with this boxing, man. Junior Dos Santos, he got finished a lot and outstruck a lot in his fight. So I'm going to give it to Tom Aspinall ever so slightly. Yeah, Tom Aspinall for the best boxing. Best BJJ is going to go to Fabricio Verdum, who has submitted some of the best guys ever. He submitted Alexander Gustafsson. He submitted a prime Cain Velasquez. He submitted a prime Fedor. I mean, I think he submitted Mark Hunt back in the day. Fabricio Verdum is, in my opinion, by far the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist at heavyweight history, just from the guys he submitted. Yeah, you can argue Big Nog, you can argue Frank Mir, but I think that Fabricio Verdum was just a cut above that with the level of guys he submitted. The wrestling, I'm going to give it to Cain Velasquez. Cain Velasquez's wrestling, I mean, who didn't this guy take down at heavyweight outside of the Francis whenever he got knocked out? Did he take down Verdum? I don't know if he took down Verdum, but outside of Verdum and Francis, which was at the end of his career, I'm pretty sure Cain Velasquez used his wrestling to take down everybody, and might as well add it on the screen. Cain had the best cardio as well. They didn't call him C-level Cain, cardio Cain for nothing. This guy was able to push the pace unlike any other heavyweight in heavyweight history, and it was always impressive and a treat to watch. You never seen Cain Velasquez gas out outside of that Fabricio Verdum fight when he fought in Mexico City at altitude. This guy always had insane cardio and wrestling. For power, it's going to be obvious. It's going to be for Francis Ngannou. I mean, the Predator. This guy's so dangerous. He went into boxing and was knocking down Tyson Fury. Knocked out Alistair Overeem cold. Knocked out Stipe Miocic cold. Knocked out Renan Fajeda recently cold. Knocked out Andrei Arlovsky. Knocked out Curtis Blades twice. I mean, need I say more? Francis Ngannou has the touch of death in his hands. And if you knocked out Jairzinho Rosenstruck, if you chose to stand with this guy, you were probably going to sleep. So, and chin, I think it's also Ngannou for chin. I mean, fighting in the UFC heavyweight division for as long as he did, I don't think he's ever been dropped. Sure, he got knocked out in boxing by Anthony Joshua, but in the UFC heavyweight division, fighting all the dangerous punches he did and fighting as reckless as he did at times, I still think that Francis Ngannou had the best chin of all time in the UFC heavyweight division. I don't even think he's ever been rocked. For fight IQ, I'm going to give it to old man Stippy. Good old Stippy with the fight IQ. Stipe Miocic, shown in his first fight with Francis Ngannou, avoiding the big forward escort power, taking him to the ground and dominating him there. And Stipe always found a way, until he got older, to put the fight in his advantage. Wherever he was going to be the best, he's going to take it there, and he's going to beat you there. And that's what he made a career off of, in my opinion. So there's a reason he has the most title defenses in heavyweight history. So Stipe Miocic with fight IQ. And let's get on to the last one, which is going to be all-time. Who has the best all-time of all these guys? That's what we're going to discuss in this last one. And for kickboxing, I think Alex Pereira has the best kickboxing of all time in the UFC. Yes, you could talk about lighter man skill and that you can argue Wonder Boy's a better kickboxer, but I don't know, man. I just think Poatan, in terms of like success and like danger factor and dropping guys and landing kicks, arguably the greatest leg kicks in UFC history, some of the best power, some amazing left hook, and just it's so dangerous and be on the feet with this guy. And if you are, you're probably going to get knocked out or dominated. So, yeah. I got caught. You got dominated. But yeah, Alex Pereira in the kickboxing. For boxing, it's going to be Ilia Taptoro. And as I said earlier, it's crazy that this guy came up as a grappler and developed the best boxing we've ever seen in the UFC. I mean, the way this guy fights in the pocket and the combinations he puts together, and along with the accuracy and the power, man, it's unmatched. Who has better boxing than Ilia Taptoro all time in the UFC? Let me know, because I don't see it. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is going to be Charles Oliveira. As I said, he has the most submissions in UFC history for a reason, 16 submissions. And yes, he's been submitted, but that was earlier in his career. Outside of the, what's it called? The Islam fight where he got submitted on the ground after being dropped. He hasn't been submitted in a long time. He made a lot of dumb errors when he was a younger fighter, but Prime Charles has not been submitted by anybody, and he has the most submissions in UFC history. So I think he has the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the history of the company. Wrestling, going to go to Khamzat Chimaev. This guy's the best first-round wrestler in UFC history and arguably ever in the sport of MMA. I mean, who has the success rate of Khamzat Chimaev in the wrestling? Look what he did to Whitaker in the wrestling. Look what he did to Kamaru Usman. Look what he did to Gilbert Burns in the beginning of the fight. Li Jing Liang. Who else? Khamzat Chimaev. I forget, but yeah, Khamzat Chimaev has destroyed everybody he's fought in the wrestling. It's not even close. He has the best wrestling in UFC history just because of, like, how successful it is. If he shoots on you, he's getting you down unless he knocks you out in 17 seconds like he did Mearshart. Now, will he gas and not be able to keep up that for the whole fight? Sure. But Khamzat Chimaev in the first round, which is what I'm judging off of, has the best wrestling we've ever seen. For power, it's going to be the Predator, Francis Ngannou. I mean, Francis Ngannou, as I said, has the death touch. If you stand on the feet with this guy and he hits you on the chin, you're going down. From the sand mines of Cameroon to the bright lights of the UFC and boxing, Francis Ngannou has shown the power of doom. Now, cardio is going to be Merab. Best cardio in UFC history. Who else is shooting 49 takedowns in fights, 30 takedowns, setting takedown records in the UFC? And never once have you seen Merab gas in any fights. This guy is always on the forward pressure, always taking you down, never stopping. I mean, this guy is so good that he was able to cardio mog Umar Nurmagomedov, who is arguably beating him in the first 2 rounds, and just straight off of cardio and good wrestling skill, able to just beat up Umar Nurmagomedov, who was undefeated. So that was a very good win. And yeah, amazing cardio, the best cardio for the machine Merab. For chin, it's Marvin Vettori. Yeah, you could say Max Holloway, you could say Cheeto, but both those guys, Cheeto's been dropped. Max Holloway's been knocked out now. And listen, I'm not writing Max Holloway's chin off just because he was knocked out. He has one of the greatest chins in UFC history. But I do think you have to edge it to Marvin Vettori just because he's fighting bigger guys. And so it's hard, it's more impressive that he's taking punishment from bigger guys and not even getting dropped or ever knocked out than Max Holloway. And yeah, Marvin Vettori for the best chin. And the highest fight IQ you've ever seen, John Jones. Listen, you don't get a 28-1 record in the UFC, arguably 28-2, but you don't get a nearly undefeated record in the UFC for over 16 years against bigger guys who can knock you out with one punch without having some of the highest fight IQ we've ever seen in UFC history. John Jones is the best at taking the fight to where it favors him the most and just winning. He's such a good winner, and fight IQ is a big part of winning. Like, if you're down, John Jones always found a way to win, and I think that puts him as having some of the best fight IQ we've ever seen. And no, not the best, some of the best. The best fight IQ we've ever seen in the history of the UFC. And yeah, this is the video, guys, ranking every skill and attribute for every single fighter in UFC history across all weight divisions and talking about who has the best of the best. This was a fun video to make. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about this. Let me know what you would change on each of these divisions and list. Do you agree or disagree? And if so, why? Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I stream and post content every single day, guys. We're trying to get to 4K. I appreciate all the support. That's the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm out.